In episode 159 of the Guitar Music Theory podcast, I discuss every type of seventh chord and how to use it. Greetings, guitar engineers. Welcome to the Guitar Music Theory podcast. If you're captivated by the magic of guitar music and eager to unravel the mysteries of music theory, you're in the right place. I'm Desi Cerna, your host, fellow guitar enthusiast, and author of Fretboard Theory, Guitar Theory for Dummies, Guitar Picking Mechanics, and more. In each episode of this podcast, I delve into the fascinating world of guitar and music theory, demystifying complex concepts and providing practical insights to help you become a more informed and skilled guitarist. Together, we'll explore chord progressions, scales, improvisation techniques, and more, unlocking the secrets that make guitar music an irresistible art. Today, in episode 159, I discuss every type of seventh chord and how to use it. Seventh chords are made when you extend a triad with an additional third. There are 5 qualities of seventh chords that appear in music. They are major seventh, minor seventh, dominant seventh, minor 7 flat 5, also known as half diminished, and diminished seventh, which is also known as the fully diminished chord. I'm going to explain how these chords are built and which familiar guitar songs use them. I'm going to play songs from the Eagles, the Doobie Brothers, Garth Brooks, and more. It's going to be a great discussion, but before we begin, what should you specifically be working on right now in order to become a better guitarist? Go to my website, guitarmusictheory.com. Answer the question I ask you about your playing, and I'll send you free custom video instruction that's calibrated to your current level. Whether you're a beginner still needing to learn the basics, or you need help with bar chords, finger picking, guitar soloing, or understanding music theory, I have a free course for you. I can provide you with a plan to put you on track to fill gaps in your playing so you can move forward and reach your music goals. Enroll in your free video course now at guitarmusictheory.com. You can click on the link in the podcast show notes. All right, so let's get on to today's topic, every type of seventh chord and how to use it. All right, so we are ready to dive in. So let's do a quick review of how chords are built. You build chords by taking a scale. I'm playing the C major scale here. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And you stack every other note. You take the first note C, and then you skip D, you go to E, and then you skip F, you go to G. So that's the first, third, and fifth from the scale. And when you play those notes together, that makes a C major chord. We call that a root third and fifth. And we're stacking this with consecutive thirds. You're starting on C and playing up 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. And then from that note, you go up another 3 notes in the scale. 3. So consecutive thirds there. And if you go through the entire scale and stack its notes this way, you get this sequence of major and minor chords. And that's the harmonized scale there. I teach this in Fretboard Theory and Guitar Theory for Dummies if you want to learn more about that. So those are basic triads, major and minor triads. Some chords come out major, like the first one, but the second one comes out minor. It's got a minor third in it. To build seventh chords, you just stick with that consecutive thirds pattern, and you would go up another third. So from C, we're going to add that note. And that's 7 scale tones away from our tonic pitch here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I take a C major chord, which is C, E, and G, and then add a 7th, which is B, That makes C major 7. It's got a nice, pretty sound to it. It sounds soft and even jazzy. There's different ways we can arrange these notes on the fretboard and stack them. Or maybe something like... these are all major 7th chords. It's all a combination of C, E, G, and B. So that's a major 7th chord. Let's go through the rest of the scale and see what happens with the other chords. If I go to the next chord in the key of C, D, which is made up of D, F, and A, and go to its 7th, I'm sticking in the C major scale here. Whoops. Its 7th is a C note. And if I add that C note to my D minor triad here, I get D minor 7. And there's different ways. So that's D, F, A, C. There's different ways that I could arrange this by moving the notes around. And on guitar, we have to do this because we can't always stack notes in order. These are all D minor 7 chords. This D minor not only had a minor 3rd in it, but its 7th is also a minor 7th. It's a flat 7th. The C's 7th is a major 7th. It's just one note away from the octave. But D's 7th is 2 notes away from the octave. That's called a flat 7 or a minor 7. And so on. Let's go through the rest of the scale. The next note is E. If you build the triad, you get E, G, and B. And if you add a 7th in there, you get a D. And so that also makes a D minor 7. There's different ways we can do this on the fretboard. Or maybe... that minor 7, it's got more depth, it's got more color to it because we have an additional note. It's not just a triad anymore. Sounds a little jazzier. Here's just a plain minor. And here's the minor 7th. I know, I want to hear minor 7ths. I think they sound a little jazzier. When I hear any type of 7th, I mean the C, there's C major, and then there's C major 7th. That sounds very jazzy, you know? Put it together with some of the minor 7ths, and you have the beginnings of jazz. Okay, so we've got C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7. Now we're on the 4-chord F. It makes an F major chord, and it has a major 7th in it. If you count up 7 scale degrees away from F, you get a major 7th. So it ends up being the same type of chord as the C, a major 7th. The next chord in the key is G, also major, and I know what you're thinking. All right, here's the 3rd major chord in the key. It must be the 3rd major 7th chord in the key, right? Wrong. If we count up 7 degrees from G, it has an F in it. It does not have an F sharp. It would need to have an F sharp in order to be a major 7. It actually has a minor 7th in it, that flat 7th. So this is an interesting chord because it's a major triad, but it has a minor or flat 7th in it. And that's a special type of 7th chord. We call it dominant 7th. So G dominant 7th. It's got an F natural in it. Different ways that we could arrange these notes on the fretboard. The degrees of the major scale have names. The 5 is called the dominant. And so we're on the 5th degree here. We're on G, building a chord and adding a 7th. So it's called G dominant 7th. But the rule in music is if a chord is a dominant 7th, you don't have to say dominant 7th. You can just say 7. You can say G7. If a chord is major 7, you have to specify that. So you'd say C major 7, F major 7, G7. that's how it works out. Let's keep going. We're on the 6th degree. It's A, builds an A minor chord. If I count up 7 degrees, it's got a minor 7th in it, or a flat 7th interval in it. So it's a G. So if I add G to an A minor chord, I get A minor 7. That cool minor 7 sound there. And then finally, we're on the 7th degree of the major scale, B. And if I build a triad here, I get B, D, and F. That's a minor 3rd and a flat or diminished 5th. It's the only chord in the major scale that doesn't have a perfect 5th. And if I count up 7 degrees, I've got an A in there, so I have a root, minor 3rd, flat 5th. That's a flat 7th or minor 7th. And here's one way I can combine those notes. That's B, D, F, A. And this is called B minor 7 flat 5. It's basically a B minor 7 with a flat 5th. A lot of tension on this chord. But that is technically the 7th chord in the key. All right, so we've gone through the whole major scale, and we have added a 7th to the basic triads. And we got major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7th, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and then we're back to the beginning, major 7. All right, so there are 4 of the 5 types of 7th chords that occur naturally or diatonically right out of the major scale. That would be major 7, minor 7, dominant 7th, and minor 7 flat 5. That minor 7 flat 5 is also known as a half diminished chord. I'll get into that here in a bit. So now let's give you some examples of how these are used. I want to play just some excerpts from some familiar songs just so you can hear what these chords sound like in context. And I'm going to start with the song Best of My Love by the Eagles. By the way, I'm going to jump around here and play in different keys, so I'm going to give you examples in different keys. I use the key of C here just to explain how we build 7th chords, but now I'm just going to give you examples from various keys. Here's a little bit of Best of My Love by the Eagles. So I'm on ultimateguitar.com. I've got the paid version, and so I pulled up the tab here, and I'm using listening to the backing track that they have available for this tablature. All right, so we've got in this song, we've got C major 7, and I'm going to play my acoustic here for you. And F major 7. I'm in the open position. I've got a C chord. I'm adding a 7th in there. And then just playing the regular triad. So I'm going back and forth between B and C in the chord. And then in the F chord, I also go back and forth between B and C. In this case, it's a sharp 4th and a 5th, but I've got an E on top. That makes an F major 7. So C major 7 and F major 7 sound. And this is part of what gives Best of My Love its distinct sound. It's those 7ths in there. Now there's more to the song, but I just want to play a portion of it there just to introduce you to this use of major seventh chords. Next, here's a portion of the song Plush by Stone Temple Pilots. I'm still at ultimateguitar.com using their backing tracks. I want to jump ahead. Let me play that for you. Right here. That is an E flat major 7. So I got an E flat triad. I got a 7th at top. This song's interesting because it's kind of based on this chromatic movement. But I love the use of that. I'm playing my Paul Reed Smith DGT. It's got Seymour Duncan pickups. I'm on the bridge pickup. I've got high gain, reverb, and chorus on here to get this sound. Major 7. So once again, that's Plush by Stone Temple Pilots. Here's another one. How about Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers? Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, city of angels, lonely as I am, together we cry. There it is, right at the end. Do you hear that? I'm in the key of E here, playing chords right out of the scale. And when I come back to the key of E at the end of this verse, I don't play a regular major. Here's a regular major. Then here's the major 7. Hear that? Major, major 7. Nice example of using a major 7 chord. You know, there's also a major 7 chord at the end of this song during this section. They do the what is it? Right there. That's an F major 7. There's the major 7. They put it an octave higher. F major 7 to E dominant 7th. We'll get to that later. To a G. An A. All right, so those are some examples of using major 7 chords. Just a few examples to introduce you to that sound, and maybe you can start to associate the sound of a major 7 to these songs. Maybe these songs are familiar to you, and that will help you recognize the sound of major 7s when you encounter them in the future. There are, of course, many, many, many other songs that use major 7s. So if you're in my Fretboard Theory video program, or you have the Fretboard Theory books, or you have Guitar Theory for Dummies, I make reference to a lot more songs. So you could see any one of those resources for more. But I want to move on now to minor 7th chords. And I'm going to start with Heart of Gold by Neil Young. Sounds like this. So at the beginning there, the basic chords are E minor to D major. But there's actually a D note in that E minor chord. I'm playing an open E minor, but I'm holding the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. It's actually E minor 7. And it just adds a little bit more depth, a little bit more color. Here's without it. And then here's with the 7th. You know, it's really common in some acoustic songs to hold not only the 2nd string at the 3rd fret, but also the 1st string at the 3rd fret. And that's still just an E minor 7. We got the D in there, that makes it a minor 7. And then the added note on the 1st string is just a G. Well, there's already a G in a E minor triad, so that doesn't really affect anything. So think about Wonderwall by Oasis. That's a song that uses this type of E minor 7. Next, how about Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin? I'm thinking about this particular part. So this is an A minor, and you lift your finger off the 3rd string. That puts a G in there. That's A minor 7. Then you also hold a G on top. That's still just A minor 7, but classic example of that A minor sound. It sounds like things changed there, but really it's not a chord change. You're just changing the chord voicing. You've got A minor 7 with a G on top, and then A minor 7 with an E on top. Both notes are part of an A minor 7 chord, so it's still A minor 7 either way. My next minor 7 example is the song Long Train Runnin' by the Doobie Brothers. We hear it right out of the gate. So that's a G minor 7. I'm playing a G minor bar chord on the 5th string all the way at the 10th fret. I take my pinky away. That introduces an F note, so that makes that G minor 7. And in this particular song, the notes that you're fretting, you're barring with your index finger, and then the other fingers you hammer on. So it's... Then you lift them up and put them back down. But to me, that's always a classic minor 7 example. And of course, there are many other songs that use minor 7th chords, and you'll likely come across them as you learn more and more songs. And don't forget that I do reference more in fretboard theory and guitar theory for dummies. But we've got more types of 7th chords to cover, including dominant 7th chords, minor 7 flat 5 chords, and diminished 7th chords. So next are dominant 7th chords, and here's my first example. Oh, wait a minute. Let's listen to the backing track. That's it. So in Ultimate Guitar, you can use like the built-in MIDI player, which is actually really helpful because you can slow it down and change the pitch and everything. Or you can switch over to a backing track where you'll hear real instruments that try to recreate the tablature. Anyway, this is Born on the Bayou by Creedence Clearwater Revival. It's in the key of E, and you're hearing... classic sound of a dominant 7th chord right there. That's an E major triad with a flat 7th in it. A minor 7th. Major triad, minor 7th. That would be E dominant 7th. And we can just simply say E7. I always think about that. And oftentimes in music, if I hear someone play that chord, especially if they arpeggiate it, because I'm so familiar with this song, Born on the Bayou, I've just associated that sound with an E dominant seventh and E in general too. As soon as I hear I can usually figure out that that must be E. Dominant seventh chords have some tension in them, and they can be used in two ways. One is just what we call a static dominant, where it's kind of your tonic pitch. Like this song is a perfect example of that. Happens in a lot of blues songs. It happens in funk songs. So that'd be a static dominant. But then sometimes dominants are used for dominant function, where a dominant chord creates tension that's going to push to and resolve on another chord. So think about maybe something like House of the Rising Sun. How that E or that E7 pushes to and resolves to A minor. Or like if we go back to the key of C, get to that 5 chord G, dominant seventh adds tension that is pushing to and wants to resolve on C. That's kind of a functioning dominant chord. And there's different ways that can be used, and we hear that in the song Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett. So this is the verse. From the key of D. Here's the 5 chord A. I'm just going to set this up for you here. Check out this transition. It's going to come back to D, and then it's going to go to the 4 chord G, right here. We've got G, A, D major, D dominant 7, G, A, D major, D dominant 7th. So that's G, A, D. There's a D7, and it adds some tension, and it's pushing to and resolving to that G. So D major, if you play a D dominant 7th, it wants to lead into G. So that's another way that dominant 7th chords are used. I talk about dominant function throughout my theory books and stuff. It's really an important part of music. But anyway, you've got a dominant 7th that is used in the song Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett. And you also have a dominant 7th that's used in The Way by Fastball. This is F sharp minor. So they made up their minds. That's where the verse starts. That's a B minor. And then here's a C sharp dominant 7th. It's got tension. It leads back to our tonic pitch F sharp minor, which changes to F sharp major, which creates tension that pushes into that B minor, then F sharp minor, C sharp dominant 7th. So F sharp minor, you go to its 5 chord, and you play a dominant 7th. Back to F sharp minor. I should have a little dirt on here, shouldn't I? Now, there's also an interesting use of a dominant seventh chord in the chorus. So let's jump to that really quick. I think it's right here. A, E, F sharp minor. There's that C sharp seventh again. D, A, E. These are cool chord changes. So we started out in F sharp minor. Now we're in the relative major A, and so we've got like chord 1, 5, 6. You kind of expect it to go to 4, D, and it does. But before that, you play that C sharp dominant seventh, which is an interesting twist and turn. It's a little surprise chord, and then it goes to the 4 chord D. So it's chord 1, 5, 6, dominant 3, then 4, 1, 5. Let's do that again. So this is A, E, F sharp minor, C sharp dominant seventh, D, A, so there's another use of a dominant seventh chord. It's interesting that it's played dominant seventh here. It adds some tension, and I don't know. It's just got a cool sound. Instead of playing what would be diatonic there, would be the C sharp minor, you know. But they don't. They play it as major with a dominant seventh in there. So I really like that sound, and that's another example of using a dominant seventh chord. We're going to move on now to a minor 7 flat 5 chord. So if we were in the key of C, this is where you're on the 7th degree. You get a minor triad with a flat 5th, and then you put a 7th in there. You know, if you're studying one of my theory programs, when we talk about harmonizing the scale, I tell you that the chord that's built on the 7th degree isn't really used, so we kind of skip it initially, and we focus on using chords 1 through 6, because they're used all the time to play chord progressions in popular music. If that 7th degree chord is going to come up, it's going to have the 7th in it. So it's going to be the minor flat 5 with the 7th. We call that minor 7 flat 5. And it's usually used in the relative minor. So instead of C major, I would be in A minor. And it's more specifically, it's used in a harmonic minor, where you raise that 7th degree so that in the key of A minor, you get an E major chord or an E dominant 7th on the 5 chord. And that minor 7 flat 5 would be the 2 chord in the key of A minor. So it's used to play 2-5-1 progressions in a harmonic minor key. And since that's kind of beyond playing just regular diatonic chord progressions, 1-4-5, 1-5-6-4, and so on, I tell you, let's just not worry about that diminished triad on the 7th degree. And I do cover it later, okay? If you keep reading in Fretboard Theory or Guitar Theory for Dummies or the video course or whatever you're in, I do eventually come around and say, okay, when is that 7th chord used and how is it used? But initially, if this is all new to you and you're just learning the harmonized scale and the number system for the first time and how to play numbered chord progressions, don't worry about that 7th degree and chord. But we're going to worry about it here today because we are talking about every type of 7th chord and how it's used. And well, the minor 7 flat 5 is one type of 7th chord, and a good example of its use would be in the song Still Got the Blues by Gary Moore. And here's the backing track. It's coming. It's coming. We got some pickup notes. There we go. Right there. So our changes here are D minor 7, G, C major 7, F major 7, and then here's B minor 7 flat 5, E major, A minor. This is like a circle chord progression. You're moving in fourths, A to D, D to G, G to C, C to F, F to B. We're staying diatonic with the notes here that are our roots. B to E, E to A. And the top of the progression actually starts on the D minor. And you put a G in the bass. Then you get to C major 7. Here's an example of using a major 7. And then F major 7. Just adds more depth and color. And then here's that B minor 7 flat 5. The notes of a B minor 7 flat 5 are B, D, F, and A. Well, if you skip the B, you have D, F, and A. Well, that's a D minor triad. So one way to think about a B minor 7 flat 5 is a D minor chord with a B in the bass. So you might come across it written that way at times. You might see D minor slash B, maybe. But that's a great example of using a minor 7 flat 5. It's a type of 2-5-1 in the key of A harmonic minor. So 2, 5, 1. Here's another example of using that same chord. This is I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. Similar changes here. A minor, D minor, G, C, F, B minor 7 flat 5, E7 sus4, 7. There it is right there. A minor, D minor, G, C or C major 7. Ooh, that sounds nice. F or F major 7. That sounds nice. B minor 7 flat 5. Why does this work? Because it's a 2-5-1 to A minor. Got B minor 7 flat 5 to E7. There's E dominant 7th, but initially you play that dominant 7th with a sus4. So that third, raise it to a 4th. So that'd be E7 sus4 and then E7 to A minor. It just repeats. That's I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. I'm going to give you one more example of using the minor 7 flat 5 chord. Coincidentally, this next song is also in the same key, so it's using B minor 7 flat 5, and this is Smooth by Santana. Here is the verse. All right, did you catch it? Well, first of all, the main changes here are A minor. I still have my chorus on from Still Got the Blues for You. Let's go with it. Why not? A minor, F, E7. There's the Born in the Bayou chord. And then it's actually the keys that are doing the next changes. The next changes are again, that's I'm having a little trouble grabbing those, but that's D minor 7, D minor 7 / C, B minor 7 flat 5, and E major chord, an inversion of it, so E / G sharp, and then back into A minor. So isn't that slick though? So B minor 7 flat 5 to a version of E major, so that's harmonic minor 2 5 1 into A minor, and that happens in the song Smooth by Santana. Let me play it again from the verse here and just listen to the keys, and let's see if you can hear that minor 7 flat 5. I'm going to solo this. Let's see if we can listen to just the keys. There's the dominant 7th. Did you hear it? A lot of tension there. It's a half diminished chord. We're going to get into that so you understand what that means. But before you can understand half diminished, you have to understand fully diminished. So the next type of seventh chord that we're going to talk about is called a diminished seventh chord. So we've already talked about 4 different types of seventh chords: the major 7, the minor 7, the dominant 7th, and then that minor 7 flat 5. Those all naturally occur in the major scale. When you harmonize the scale and stack its notes to form chords and add sevenths to each degree of the scale, as you build the chords, you get those 4 types of seventh chords. But there's another type called the diminished seventh, and this is not something that naturally occurs in a scale. But let's go back to the key of C here. And remember that the 7th degree was B, D, F. That's a diminished triad because you have a minor 3rd and a diminished 5th. We could add A. That would be our 7th. If we flatten that A, now we have a double flat 7th. Now we have B, D, F, and we would call that A flat. Now, you might be thinking, that's also the distance from B to A flat is a 6th, so why don't we call that a 6th? It's because when we build seventh chords, we have to follow the formula, which is 1, 3, 5, 7. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 5. That's a flat 7, by the way. 1, 3, 5, flat 7. We still want to call it a 7th. A flat is not in the C major scale, so this isn't diatonic. This isn't naturally built from the scale. And this is a diminished seventh chord, and this is actually what musicians mean when typically when they say diminished, they're talking about a diminished seventh chord, which is also known as a fully diminished chord. It's called diminished because it's based all on minor 3rd intervals. B to D is a minor 3rd. D to F is a minor 3rd. F to A flat is a minor third, and I can keep going then. A flat to B, minor third, then go up a 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 minor third. It's all minor thirds. And here's one way that we could combine these notes to make a chord shape. So this would be B diminished seventh, or B fully diminished, although it's not uncommon for musicians just to say B diminished. And what's interesting about the diminished chord is because all of its notes are a minor third apart, 3 half steps, when you learn a diminished chord fingering, you can play inversions by just going up 3 frets. Just take the same fingering up 3 frets. There's a lot of tension on this chord. You'd never have a song that was rooted on a chord like this. You're not going to start singing a song like that. Diminished chords are used as like connector chords. They're not used on the 7th scale degree, so you don't want to think of it as some form of the chord that's built off of the 7th degree. It's not. When you're playing progressions, you don't play a diminished chord on the 7th degree. That's not how it, that's not how it works. They are usually used as chromatic half-step chords. And a great example of this, as I just knocked my mic, a great example of this is Friends in Low Places by Garth Brooks. Here's a little bit of the backing track on Ultimate Guitar. There it is right there. So this is in the key of A. I got a capo at the 2nd fret, and I'm capoed up here. But check out these chord changes. We've got A. Then I'm going to go up a half step and do the diminished thing. Then I go to the 2 chord, B minor 7, and the 5 chord E. Let me do that again. So in this case, I've got an A sharp diminished. I'm putting the diminished right in between the 1 chord and the 2 chord. This is like basically going 1, sharp 1, 2, 5, major or dominant 7th, whatever. Sounds pretty jazzy if I put 7ths in it. But that's a great example of using a fully diminished chord, diminished 7th. It's a little half-step connector chord. And Friends in Low Places by Garth Brooks is a great example of that. Another good example is Shower the People by James Taylor. I'm going to start this backing track in the chorus and see if you can spot that diminished chord. Listen for that half-step movement. Catch it there. It's going to come around again. A little half-step movement, a little connector chord. All right, get ready for it. Right here. Lots of interesting things going on in this song, but it's a good example of that diminished half-step movement. And here's another. This is Dance With Me by Orleans. Lots of really cool guitar in this song. Really well written fun song here. I'm a fan. Let's jump to the chorus. That's where it happens. So here's the chorus. Let's see if you can spot it when it happens. Listen for it. Oh, did you hear it there? Did you hear it there? All right, let me grab my acoustic. Really cool song. It's in the key of D. And we get into the chorus. Here it is. So I'm in the key of D. I go to the 4-chord G. And then A7. A sharp, diminished, 7th, fully diminished, into B minor. So I'm in the key of D. I'm connecting the 5 chord to the 6th chord with a diminished. It's really common to do that. So and then it goes on. All right, well, that covers all 5 types of 7th chords, but I do want to talk about a few more examples just to clarify some confusion that might that you might have. Sometimes you'll hear that half step movement and those little connector chords, and you think, oh, that must be a diminished chord, but sometimes it's not a diminished chord. It could be an inversion of a major chord or a dominant 7th chord. So you just want to look out for that. And, as a musician, you kind of get used to it. And sometimes the chords are interchangeable. Like when that happens, well, you could have put a fully diminished chord in there and it would kind of function the same way anyway. But a good example of this is the song Please Don't Come Home for Christmas. I'm thinking about the Eagles version of it. And if you go to my website, I chart this out for you, and I've got a little video tutorial on it. It's free. Just search for it on my website. I had a video on Facebook, but Facebook banned it. But it's still on... I'm sorry. I had a video on YouTube. YouTube banned it. It's still on Facebook. You can go to Facebook and search Desi Cerna, Please Come Home for Christmas, or find it. Or I just have the video embedded on my website. So let's listen to these changes here. Right there. Oh, you might think
Greetings, guitar engineers. I'm Desi Cerna.
Hello, Desi Cerna. So let's talk about what's happening there with those changes. This is in the key of A. I've got to pull up my chart here. I've got a chart for this. Let's open image in new tab and then click on it and make it all big and nice. So we're in the key of A. Then we got A major 7. Oh, there's an A major 7. A dominant 7th, which pushes to and leads to D. And then here's where I thought it was a diminished. It could be, but it's actually a B7, the 2-chord B7 with its 3rd D sharp in the bass. Okay, well, it's really similar, isn't it? I mean, it's basically, it's almost there. It's got the the root, the minor third, the diminished fifth, but it doesn't have the double flat 7. And then some more notes up there. But it's kind of functioning the same way. So let me go back to the beginning. So good example of using dominant sevenths and major sevenths in this song, so you can look it up after you complete this podcast. But anyway, something to look out for here. If I put a fully diminished chord in there, it actually would fit and sound just fine. And so on. But technically, it's an inversion. And sometimes we'll have that happen where it's just an inversion of the 2 chord played as a secondary dominant major, then put its third in the bass. So it could be, might be leading to 5 or maybe to the 5th of the 1 chord. So you want to watch out for that type of movement. Now, what's interesting about this inversion of a B dominant 7th is when I play it, coincidentally, it's the same fingering as the diminished triad that's on the 7th degree. If I go back to the key of C, where I started you, and I go to B, and play a combination of the notes B, D, and F, I get a particular fingering that I told you wasn't really used. Well, here it's being used if I just slide it up to D sharp. But it would be incorrect to think about this as being the chord that is built off of the 7th degree of the scale. It's not. It's actually an inversion of the dominant 2 chord. And you're putting that third in the bass for this chromatic movement here. D to D sharp to E, which is the 5th of the A chord. So again, it would be incorrect, even though coincidentally we have the same fingering that makes that diminished triad chord. It would be incorrect to think of this as an example of using that chord because we're not on the 7th degree of the scale. We're actually doing something different. It's functioning differently, and it's just coincidentally happens to be the same fingering. So you want to look out for that. And I'll give you one more example. Here's the song Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis. Also appears to maybe have a diminished chord. There's a little half-step movement in there, but it's not quite that, or not necessarily that. Here's the backing track. So here's the pre-chorus. We haven't had it yet. Just keep listening. Minor 4 chord. 4, minor 4 to 1. That's interesting. Okay, listen to this part right here. Ready? So this music is in the key of C, and at that point, it goes to the 5 chord G, and it's going to go up to the 6 chord A minor, but it connects it with that half step. G, G sharp, into A minor. And it sounds like a diminished chord. You could put one in there. But I've looked at some different music, and they have it tabbed as actually an E chord, with a first inversion of an E major chord. That would be E/G sharp. So listen to this. G, E/G sharp into A minor. Yeah, it could be either way. And so the notes are with this E/G sharp and then a diminished. I mean, there's some relationship there. They're similar. You could use either one. It kind of functions similarly. But this is another example where sometimes you're going to hear that half-step chromatic movement, and maybe it's not a diminished seventh chord. Maybe it's an inversion of a major chord or a dominant seventh chord. This makes sense here. We're going from G to A minor. Well, think about harmonic minor. What leads to A minor in harmonic minor? E major. Oh, all right. So why not go G, and instead of straight into A minor, let's go to that E first and have that dominant push. So okay, and then we can, when we go to that E major, let's put its third, G sharp, in the bass. Now our bass notes go from G to G sharp to A. We've got that half step climbing movement there. There's different ways you could play that E/G sharp. I'm actually just fingering part of an open E chord here, then reaching with my pinky for that G sharp, but I could do it other ways. Or maybe... I'm not exactly sure what happens, how it was actually played in the song. I looked at a couple different tabbed versions of this, and they were a little bit different. But I'm not sure that it really matters. What matters is that you play something that sounds similar to what's happening in the music. And what's happening in the music is you do have some half-step chromatic movement here. Sounds like a diminished chord, but in this case, it's actually an inversion of a major chord. All right, podcast 159 is a wrap. If you have topics you want to suggest for future podcast episodes, just go to my website, guitarmusictheory.com, scroll down and click on the contact link. And if you have not yet enrolled in a free video course, answer that question on my website, and I will suggest a video course that's calibrated to your current level. Whether you're a beginner or advanced player, whether you want to work on technique or study theory, I have a free video course for you. I can put you on a plan so that you can move forward and reach your music goals quicker, have more fun, and learn lots of interesting things. So be sure to enroll in your free video course at guitarmusictheory.com. You can click on the link in the podcast show notes. And don't forget that all of my books are sold on Amazon.com. That includes Fretboard Theory, Guitar Theory for Dummies, Guitar Rhythm and Technique for Dummies, Guitar Picking Mechanics, and others. All right, guitar engineers, thanks for listening. I'm Desi Cerna. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, give it a good rating, leave a comment and a review if you can, and then keep playing and stay tuned for more.